Hello and welcome to the Female Founder Friday podcast with me, Lindsay White. I'm passionate about helping female entrepreneurs be great leaders, build high-performing teams, and create inspiring workplace cultures through innovative talent programs and practices. Because when people feel like they belong at work, they deliver their very best and businesses thrive. The Female Founder Friday podcast is all about connecting with the most incredible female entrepreneurs to talk about their journey to creating their own business, the mistakes they've made along the way, and how they view their own leadership. And I'm challenging all of my guests this season to take my leadership style quiz. And during each episode, we'll be digging into their leadership style and how it impacts the way they lead in their life and their business. And if you're interested in learning more about your leadership style and want some of my top tips to help you lead more effectively, you can take the quiz right now. Just check out the show notes or head over to 𝐷𝑉oltageleadership.ca and click on the button at the top of the page that says Take the Quiz. Then you can share your results, connect with my guests, and join the conversation on Instagram by following me at 𝐷𝐷VoltLeadership. My guest on this week's episode is Ulrike Seminati, who is a coach, author, longtime senior executive, as well as the founder of Empowering Female Leaders. Just love that business title. She spent more than 20 years building a career in the corporate world, and as she says in the episode, she's made all the mistakes that she now helps other female leaders to avoid. And what we really spoke to me about this conversation is her incredible commitment to help every woman in a leadership role be authentic, confident, and truly understand their own value so they can be a more inspiring leader and really create high-performing teams. We have such a great conversation about all things leadership today. I know you're going to love this episode. Awesome. Welcome. I have such a great guest here today. Ulrike Seminati is joining me, and I am super interested to learn more about you and your journey as a female founder, because I've sort of gotten the Coles Notes version, but I'm sure there's a whole lot more underneath. So let's start with that. Welcome and tell us about your journey to being a female founder.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's a true pleasure to be here. So I'm based in Switzerland right now, relocating soon-ish to Dubai. So
That's exciting.
Building more international networks and all of that. I'm a founder, or have created my company 4 years ago. Started as a one-woman show, which I still am. Basically, I'm working with a lot of external partners, but I'm a one-woman show, basically. Doing leadership and communication, coaching, consulting, especially also for women in leadership positions who want to thrive, who want to live their career on their own terms, which for many women is quite tricky. But I was before working in the corporate world myself for quite a long time. I spent 23 years as a corporate communications leader, climbing up the whole hierarchy ladder. I started actually as an assistant, and I ended up in a C-level role in an executive committee of an international pharma group. So quite a career. Yeah. And in hindsight, I did all the mistakes which I tell the women I teach now not to do. So actually. But what for me was important, especially in the end of my career, when I was in these higher levels, when you look at the company from a different perspective, actually, as when you're in the middle of it somehow, was that I realized how much leaders really struggle with being themselves, with communicating properly, because they're not authentic, they're not standing in their full power. And even at the highest levels, they have a lot of self-doubts and spend a lot of energy in hiding them, including myself. I was exactly in the position myself as well. And so I thought, this is really something I want to change. And if I want to change that, then I have to step out of the corporate world and do it from the outside. I can't do it when I'm just one of the leaders inside of a corporation, because you have that role, whatever role it is, and people will not see you as an expert in helping them to develop themselves or something like that. So that's why I stepped out and I thought, okay, I want to change something, because so many people are unhappy in the corporate world with themselves or with their leaders or with the whole culture in the company. There's a lot of frustration out there, and it shouldn't be, because everybody roughly wants the same thing. You know, we all want a human workplace in a certain way, where we have trust, where there's honesty, where there's authenticity. And so few people dare to be themselves, to be honest. And especially women, there's so much to do, because we think we need to adapt. because we need to adapt it to this kind of male leadership style that is out there already for decades. And unconsciously, we lose our identity if we climb higher up the hierarchy ladder. And I think this is a true loss. And this is why I created my company, because there's the whole point to have leaders who are themselves. That would be such a difference. Imagine just everybody's honest and is themselves. Wow, what a different corporate world for all of those who have to work there.
I knew we were going to have a great conversation, because you and I, we are singing from the same song sheet. And one of the points that you just made that I think is so important is that, isn't it interesting that when asked, I think the majority of people would say they want to have a great place to work that's open and honest, where people can be authentic, where they can be vulnerable when they need to be. I think lots of people say that, and yet what we hear and what we see in the statistics and the engagement surveys and the reports is that that isn't actually happening. That's what I find so ironic, is that that's what we really want, and yet somehow organizations are missing the mark when it comes to creating them, even when they say that's what they really want to do. I find it bizarre, don't you?
Yeah, me too. It's really strange, basically.
Yeah.
And I don't exactly know why, but what I see is that most people think that they are contributing to this new world, to this new reality which they would like to have. They think that they're doing their best, and they're not aware that they're not doing their best because they have not started working on themselves.
Yeah.
So they try to change their environments and do maybe things that they have read or even learned in a training, but they never really create the level of self-awareness that is needed to make a true shift that starts from them. Because obviously we cannot change the others if we don't start with ourselves first.
Yeah.
And that is, I think that's the point.
Yeah, you know what? I just said that to someone this morning, that the only person we can impact change on is ourselves, right? We have to be the change we want to see in other people and inside of organizations. And you work with larger organizations. I work with small female-led organizations. And I say that to the female leaders I work with, these small business CEOs all the time. If you want your people to be different, you have to be different first. Well, why do I have to change? Because you have to show them what the change is all about. You have to step into that. If you think they're going to do, like, why would they do it if you don't? Yeah, maybe is the better question, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. I think that's just the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And understanding that and admitting it. It's hard to admit.
Yeah, just owning it.
Yes, exactly.
Just owning it.
To admit. Yeah, but admitting it without blaming yourself, that's the trick.
Yes.
You can admit that. You take this accountability, but without blaming yourself. You don't have to blame yourself like, oh, I'm so bad. No, you're not. You can just be better now, from now onwards. Looking into the future instead of looking into the past, and then just move on and become this better person that you want also others to be at the end.
Yeah. I love that. And I think you're right. Like the self-judgment, beating yourself up. Oh, I'm terrible. I can't, like, I should have done this. I mean, that doesn't serve anybody. Being able to reflect and say, yeah, that didn't go very well. I can be better. That is where you can move forward from. So there's a distinct difference there in the way you can approach that self-reflection, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I often hear from people who hesitate to, for example, start with a coaching and start to really look into who they are by saying, "Oh no, but I don't want to open a Pandora box or something where I find horrible things about myself." And I say, what the hell do you expect to see?
Totally it.
And on the other side, even if you find out something about yourself that shocks you potentially, you don't have to blame yourself for that. It's not automatic that then you need to hate yourself for that or something.
Yes.
But I know many people who just don't get started because of that, because they shy away from what they might discover. And it's the total opposite in reality. In reality, when you see even things where you think, oh my God, how could I not see that for so many years? I can't believe it. Well, it's a real eye opener. And people most of the time then say, why didn't I do that earlier?
Yeah.
Why?
I think that that is such a great point. Yes. When you enter a coaching relationship, you are absolutely going to find out things about yourself you didn't know. Actually, that's kind of the whole point of being in coaching, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And some of those things you're going to be proud of, and some of those things you're not going to be super proud of. However, if you don't know about the things that you're not proud of, how could you possibly change them or fix them? You're just destined to repeat them, right? Over and over and over. And isn't
Yeah.
that the definition of insanity? Looking to
Yeah.
be different but doing the same things. I mean, realistically, we know that. But you're right. It's intimidating for people getting into a coaching relationship.
Yeah,
Like
it is. It is.
it
Yeah, because you feel like I have to show my weaknesses. I have to show all these flaws that I have hidden for so long, so carefully, and suddenly
yes.
open up. And I think I have the feeling that people are actually really more afraid of opening up to themselves than to the coach. So it
Mm.
seems to be because many people who come to see me have a low level of self-esteem or low self-confidence, even if they're very ambitious and on the outside they don't
Yeah.
look like being not self-confident at all, huh? But they are inside of themselves, and this is why they shy away from seeing something which they perceive as negative about themselves, because then they think, oh my god, this will lower my self-esteem even more. How will I be able to handle that? Whereas it's exactly the opposite. When you find out these things, suddenly they cannot, as you just said before, they cannot steer you from your subconscious anymore all the time.
Yeah.
And you will see that you can then change your behavior and your attitude towards yourself, and by this your level of confidence to do the things that you always wanted to do or never dared to do.
Yeah. I think you made a really beautiful point there, and that is, do I have what it takes to handle what I'm going to learn? Do I have the courage and the strength? And the short answer is, of course you do. Of course you do. Right? Just the fact that you're actually thinking about it means you do.
Yeah,
But I
right.
think you're right. I think a lot of people, maybe subconsciously, they might not say it out loud, but subconsciously think, I don't know if I can handle it. Well, the reality is, of course you can. You've already been through
Yeah.
it once, right? You've already had that lived experience, and you can absolutely use that to move you forward in a far more meaningful way than just leaving it to sort of sit and fester. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
it. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, this could be a really long podcast if we don't move on. Um, Tell us a little bit. So, talking about self-reflection, we're both coaches. This is what we do. We do our own work. We do the work with people. What about you? Where have you made mistakes or missteps, and what have you learned from them?
So when I just look at the past 3, 4 years, when I stepped out of the corporate world, dropping into the unknown and starting my own business, I think when I look at, there was three big mistakes, which I would say, well, mistakes, it's now learning, obviously.
Yes.
And I've really grown from that. But looking back now, I could have started probably this journey much more upfront earlier if I had known that these are the areas where I would probably stumble at the end. The first thing is a very factual thing, actually, in a certain way. It's about having my positioning, knowing really what exactly I wanted to do. So I had an idea, but it was a bit vague, my audience, which country, which kind of, big corporations, individual people, and whatever. So all of that was for a long time pretty unclear. And I was shifting between different things, and it took me time to find that positioning. So I think this is something which I now would do as long as I still have a job that is paid, to just do that, because you
Do
can
it
do that.
first.
You don't have to work yet in your new business. You can just really shape it in your mind, build the blueprint of it basically before you drop your job. That's what I would do again when I had to do it again. But then there were two things, and these two things really took me time in getting coaching from other people, so that I get over my thresholds, my inner barriers. And there were two major things which I also see in my clients today, which is the confidence piece. Because even if I climbed up this whole career ladder, I wasn't a very top. I was very kind of successful, a true performer. I was also a true perfectionist. This is why I was a true performer. But I was never, ever satisfied with myself. And as a true perfectionist, the confidence is low because you think you are never good enough. That's the nature of perfectionism. And this really, I had to fight against this very hard, or to get it under control, let's say. I'm still a perfectionist.
Hey,
I was,
yes.
it's, I think you're it for life. It's like being, I
Yes.
don't know, alcoholic. You will always be it, but you can get control of it.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly that. So that I don't let myself yeah, blame myself and
Right.
criticize myself because there are these last 5, 10, or even 20% which were maybe not perfect. I needed really to get over this, to get to a level of confidence where I could share with confidence my ideas, because I knew that they're good. I knew that I had the knowledge and all of that, but in my heart, I wasn't there. There was always this voice telling me, "Ah, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe they won't like it. Maybe, and whatever." Yeah. So this took me time to grow into these new shoes, seriously. And then I realized, and the second thing that was very, very powerful in me, and I realized its power only when I started digging deeper, because there was so much, and that was all about money mindset. What I believe I'm worth, what I believe my services are worth. And it was so much lower than what I was asking that I could not say my price with a natural voice, basically, because it was really shining through. If you feel inside of yourself you're not worth it, and if you're not even aware that you think that you're not worth it, which is most oftentimes the case, then your whole body language says the opposite of your words, and then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And when I started shifting this, especially the money mindset piece, nearly immediately when I came to a level where I had a feeling, now I've done some serious cleaning here. So it's never perfect. It doesn't have to be also, yeah, because I'm
No,
it
right?
doesn't have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no perfection. Yeah.
But it is there's a certain level when things start really to change, when you clean up this money mindset and suddenly opportunities come up which weren't there before. Even if I hadn't changed my competencies or my
Yeah.
marketing or my ability or anything, it was just because I had this other attitude. And I realized how powerful that actually is. And I know that is something that I continuously have to grow with my business. You know, the more it grows, the more I need to also raise that glass ceiling of my inner money mindset barriers, basically, to be able to step into these new eras here and there, because
Yeah.
if not, it's not happening. And it's really inside. So
Yeah.
I see it as a true power. And I knew it a little bit before because you read books about that. And as a coach, anyway, you're into it somehow. But when you realize that actually business takes really only off when you're ready for it inside of yourself, that's amazing. And some people are that naturally, and some aren't. I've also spoken to businesswomen who are super, super successful, you know, these double digit million businesses where you think, wow, my God. And all of them had this mental piece which they saw as the true strength. It was about what I believe is real, what I believe that what I can make happens. And if I don't believe it, it's not happening. And there's no one else, there are no circumstances or something like that that make it happen. It's my belief that makes it happen. And it's very powerful from also people where you think, well, they have such a successful business, they must have a lot of, you know, business acumen and all these financial things in the background which they know, and obviously it's there, but they see the true driver, the true success factor inside of themselves. And I think this is a great news because we all have it inside of ourselves.
Yeah.
So we all have it.
I love that. I think you're right. It starts from within. It really does start from within, and believing in yourself, understanding yourself. What, why? What's your why? Why are you doing this? Why is this important to you? What is I think we lose a lot of that along the way. And we forget what we value the most. We forget that we get to be confident. We forget that we don't have to be perfect. I love that you just so boldly step into that. Like, I'm a perfectionist and I'm working on it, right? Like that. You're right. I don't think that ever goes away. I'm a pleaser. So my biggest problem is that I make everyone else happy and sacrifice what makes me happy, and then I end up frustrated and angry and burnt out. And there's always a double-edged sword. So everybody else around me is like, "Oh, Lindsay's awesome. It's great. This is fabulous." And deep on the inside, I want to kill everybody. Like, I'm homicidal rage, right? We that stuff doesn't go away. It's a journey and we're always working on it. But if we own it and we understand it, then we can work on that mindset. We can understand that there's a way to use that to our benefit, personally and in our business. And I love that you just embrace that so boldly, right? I think that's key. I think it, you said at the very beginning, having a really great idea and actually building that blueprint before you leave your corporate job. If that's where you are. And a lot of women, that's what happens. We're in a corporate job and there's a reason we want to leave. We don't like the environment. We don't like the leadership. We're just not happy with the work we're doing. But spend that time to get your ducks in a row first. I know that spoke to me personally, because I left my job and I had no idea what I was going to do. And you're right. I would go back. I would do that differently. So I love that. I think that's a really great lesson for anyone who is listening and thinking about it. Yeah, get your side hustle ready to roll before you leave your job. That's great advice. Awesome. Okay, we're going to transition now. I've asked Ulrike to do my leadership style quiz. And she's going to tell us about her leadership style, what that means to her in her business, in her life, how she leads, from the inside out. And if you are interested in knowing your leadership style, you can go to the show notes. There's a link. You can go to the website, highvoltageleadership.ca. There's a button that says take the quiz. Takes about 2 or 3 minutes. It's fun. You're going to learn something about yourself and your own style. I'm going to send you some of my best leadership tips that you can implement right away. And then you can follow along and you can see where your leadership style is in comparison. So tell us, what did you get from the quiz? What was your leadership style?
So my leadership style is supporting.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's rather in the supporting area, because I like to help people to to develop their own ideas, to grow, to do what they think is right. So it's not a coaching leadership style. I try to move it towards that, because that's much more powerful in my eyes. But coaching leadership style means that you really ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You ask questions that people, whereas I still cannot hold myself back enough to give tips and advice. Okay, so I love to ask, what's going on, what's your problem, what do you want to achieve with that, and all of that. But then I don't just dig deeper so that they can find the answers. I still love to give some advice out of my experience, out of what I've done. I know that it depends also on the person, obviously, but with young people who are just having 2, 3, 5 years experience, for example, they love also to get these kind of advice and to apply it and to learn from that. So I think even if I'm a big defender of a coaching leadership style, which I think is the most modern leadership style and certainly the one of the future, but it will take a long time, I think, until everybody applies it. I must be honest, and I'm still rather in the supporting area, which is a nice one, but sometimes it's a struggle as well, because then sometimes you just need to get things done, and depending on the person, if the person's not doing it, becoming more strict is difficult for me. That's really against my nature, and this is where the struggle comes in with the supporting leadership style, actually.
I love that you bring that up, because you're right. I mean, in different situations, we need to show up with different leadership capability, right? And there are moments where we have to be a bit more directive, because we need things done and we need them potentially done a certain way. But it can be really difficult if that's not sort of your natural space. It can be uncomfortable. But I love that you bring, and I'm sure that your style, although you said supporting, is very coach-like in its approach. I'm sure you do ask. I mean, we can't help ourselves. That's what we do as coaches. We ask a ton of questions. We get really curious. It's kind of annoying, actually. I drive my husband crazy. But I think it is important. We have to be able to be flexible in the way we bring different leadership capability to different situations. That's such a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole art of leadership, actually, to be able to apply the 4 styles to the different people, because some just need more instructions. Clearly, there's no way around that. Or some just need it in specific situations where they have no experience yet at all, whereas they're maybe super experienced in other areas. So you need to adapt it. But like you say, naturally we have the tendency to use one style because that's just the way we are. And then it becomes more tricky, and it's a deliberate application of another style, and to really slip into this other way of being in a certain way while still being authentic. And that's really an art to apply another leadership style while still being authentic, because you're just aware of that you now need to step into this one because the person demands for it, or you can only basically release the potential of this other person if you step into this other leadership style.
I love the way you said that. And again, such a supporting idea that you're, as the leader, your job is to unleash their potential. Your job as a leader is to create more leaders. That's really what leadership is actually all about, is to get them to lead themselves, to lead others on your team, right? Like it's to spread that leadership love is maybe the way I would put it. But I think that's beautifully said. That really, and your job is to do the things that you need to do to really enable them to perform at their best. And sometimes that means you're going to bump up against your leading edge, right? The things that you're not potentially awesome at in order to help them be awesome. And I think that's actually a really great point.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Recently, someone else asked me as well, what does it mean to be a good leader? And it's exactly what you said. It's about helping others to release their potential. For me, that's the thing about a leader, that this person helps others to grow so that they can do their best. And better and better in their own sense, according to their vision, not only the vision of the leader or the vision of the organization. If it doesn't fit anymore, then people have to change towards something else, somewhere else, very simply having the courage to do that. But for me, that's how, like you say, that's a leader. A leader is someone who's telling others what they should do, or who's only thinking about achieving the team goals. It's really about helping people to achieve their potential while they, in the best case, also achieve the team goals. But,
yeah, right? Like matching those two things up is important.
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, even I always think about it, and you tell me your thoughts here as we go down this rabbit hole a little bit. If it's if it's not the right person, if encouraging them to do the right, to do their best and grow doesn't fit with your team and with the goals that you have to accomplish, then they're not working in the right place. And that's okay. Your job as a leader is to help them find a job where they are a better fit, right? Like ultimately, you can't fit the square peg into the round hole. Yes, you're nodding. So this is, I'm making some sense.
Yeah, that's absolutely making sense. And most people just stick to their job or to their roles or to their teams because they think they have to. And at the end, all of those concerned which are not in the right place are unhappy. So it's not helping, as you say. And I think having the courage to say, finally, that's not the right role for you. Or that's maybe not the thing which you should do because you just go to work and try to squeeze yourself into a behavior that's not yours. It makes you sick over time. You, after 20 years like that, you don't even know who you are anymore.
Oh, it's so
horrible.
True. It is true. It is horrible. It is horrible because you're right.
Happy.
No, and you completely lose all sense of who you are because you've worked so hard to try and be what someone else thinks you should be.
Yes, exactly. It's like with this, everybody knows that story. It's like with the frog in the hot water. If you throw a frog in the hot water, it jumps out immediately. But if it's cooked slowly, it doesn't even realize it. And that's exactly the thing. You forget who you are when you just stay in a role that is okay-ish, but you don't really like it. And you just continue to adapt. And every week, every month, you lose a little piece of yourself, a little piece more and more and more. And at the end, after years, it's like, huh? And I know many people that by this, they lose the confidence they have about themselves. They lose their self-esteem logically because you just do not see yourself anymore. You don't value yourself anymore. And that's the trap with that. So I think it's so much more rewarding if you're in a role where I can be myself, whatever I know, my competencies, my style, my energy, or my introvert. If you're an introvert, it's totally different. This is valued. Because I'm in the right place here. I'm complementing maybe the team in a way because there are other profiles, this kind of diversity, which can be interesting, whatever it is. But to be clear why I'm here, what I contribute, and I feel great about myself in that place. that's a great situation if you achieve that at work. And I think as long as you don't achieve it, you don't have to stay in a positions forever. You
No.
just do it for a while, do it for 2 years for the sake of having a certain experience if you want to, but then move on, move on. Because
Right.
many people, 2 years, they don't have the courage anymore. They think, oh, now I'm already 2 years, I have a certain, people know me now.
Yeah.
It's a bit of, it's a false comfort zone at the end. And the longer you stay in, the more difficult it becomes to step out of it and do something else.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know what I hear in all of this conversation we've had from your journey and building your corporate career and, leaving and jumping into something new. I mean, we do it every day when we coach people. It's an act of courage. Like all of this in all this conversation is really the incredible courage that we all have. It's there. You just need to call on it. Courage to be vulnerable, courage to learn, courage to acknowledge I'm a perfectionist or a pleaser and I'm working on it, right? Like all of this is really about having and calling on the courage that each and every one of us has on the inside. And just a plug, working with a really great coach, just happens to be two of us here on this conversation today, can help you find that courage. I mean, I think that's what coaching brings to people so beautifully, is just getting access to some of those important pieces of themselves that they just don't even know are in there.
Yeah, exactly. You need someone who asks you questions,
Yeah.
because you can't ask yourself these questions
No, I
alone.
know, right?
No way.
No
Your
way.
ego will do everything so that the right question will never come to your mind.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have someone else asking you these questions. You think, oh, I've never thought about that. Right. Wow. What an aha moment. Now I understand certain
Yeah.
mechanisms, why I react like this in that situation, and so on. So yes, you need someone who helps you with that. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's so much faster. You can read 20, 40, 50 books. It's all great. I love books. I have read so many of them.
Right?
It's all
But yeah, putting this into action is a totally different thing than just having the theory and understanding in theory how it works and what you should do, because that's not tailor-made to you. It's a book. It's a theory. It's a good theory, but it's not yours.
I love that you said that, because I hear that from a lot of people. You probably do too. Oh, I read a lot of self-help. I read all this stuff. And that, you're right, that is fantastic. It's the practice, it's the accountability, it's the reflection, it is the space that a coach enables you to have. It's the truth telling. I mean, sometimes we have to tell our clients hard stuff that they don't really want to hear, but they need,
Yeah.
right? It's the relationships, the connections, the deep connection. And being able, having someone say to you, no, you can do this, right?
Yes.
Like that's what the coaching relationships offer. And you're right, you can move forward a whole lot faster working with a coach, a great coach. Let me be clear, a coach that fits for each individual. But I think that was beautifully said. You can move forward faster by spending some time with a really great coach who is a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you and we could go on for at least another hour.
It's true.
But we could totally talk about this all day. Thank you. I am extremely grateful for your time. This conversation's been super energizing for me. And I'm so grateful that you came on the show to share with everyone that's listening.
I'm very pleased to be here too. I love these conversations because it's always different. When you rephrase it again, you also gain not insights, but a certain depth that it's getting deeper and deeper. I love this conversation. It's great to exchange with professionals like you who have similar experiences, and to see also that, across the globe, it's everywhere the same.
Yeah.
You're on the other side of the Atlantic and still it's the same. And if I go with people in Australia and have an interview there, it's still the same. And also
Right?
in very different cultures, which are not Western cultures, same issues. I mean, it's just the same. So we're all human beings, and this is great to see, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It is the human condition. And I love that, I get to talk to women all over the world about these really powerful things, and ultimately highlight how we can bring great leadership to our businesses, big and small. And I think that that is so powerful. So thank you again for sharing with us today. This has just been absolutely a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. It was great for me as well.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. I sure hope you enjoyed listening as much as I did hosting this conversation. And if you did enjoy today's episode, would you do me a favor? Would you give the episode a 5-star review and share it with all of your friends? I would really appreciate that. I've got a goal to impact 1,000 female founders, and with your help, we can really amplify this message. Thanks again for being a part of the show, and don't forget to connect with me and all of my guests on Instagram at High Volt Leadership. We'll see you next Friday.